Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Down Syndrome Center podcast. As always, I am your host, Dr. Kishore Balint, and we are happy to have with us today a very important topic that we're going to be talking about. We have Erica Balint here with us today. I'm going to have her introduce herself to you all here in just a moment, but essentially, we see about, between 40 and 60 new babies a year in our Down syndrome clinic. And each time we meet with a new family, we talk about a very important thing that we know from data is so helpful to people with Down syndrome, and that is early intervention services. Now, those of you who are newer to the diagnosis of Down syndrome, you may wonder, what does that even mean? What are early intervention services? And what are the other names that we've heard it called by? And all those things we're going to be talking about today to help bring you some more information and help you understand the very important role that early intervention services will play. No matter where you are listening to this podcast, anywhere in this country, at least, you are going to be qualifying for early intervention services to help your child develop and grow. So before I get too far into the podcast, I would love to have an opportunity for you, Erica, to introduce yourself. So tell us who you are, what you do, why you love doing it, those kinds of things.
Good morning. Again, my name is Erica Balint. I am with the Alliance for Infants and Toddlers, and we are the early intervention agency in Allegheny County in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I have been with the Alliance for Infants for 24 years. I started as a service coordinator where I worked with the families, helped to coordinate their evaluations, help the families to write their family service plans, get them organized, get them set up with services. And then I moved into the outreach role. And what that means is that I work in the community. I educate the community, provide them with resources, education about early intervention. I go into pediatrician offices, hospitals, childcare centers, our homeless shelters, family support groups, libraries, all a variety of different social service organizations in our county to, again, provide them with information on early intervention, make sure they understand the referral process and how to get a family into our agency.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of traveling around and sharing information. I love that. And I love that you're sharing your expertise with us today. So I guess right off the bat, let me just ask you, what is early intervention or birth to 3? I've heard it called in other states. What are these services?
So early intervention, it's services and supports for children from birth through age 5 who are at risk or who are demonstrating developmental delays. And the way early intervention works, it's broken down from birth to 3, which is the infant toddler piece, and then 3 to 5, which is the preschool piece. So in Allegheny County, we are known as the Alliance for Infants and Toddlers, the Birth to 3 program. And throughout the state of Pennsylvania, every county has their own name for the Birth to 3 program. But specifically in Allegheny County, we are known as the Alliance for Infants and Toddlers. So we focus on 5 main areas of development in early intervention. We look at motor skills, which would look at gross and fine motor. We look at cognitive development. We look at communication skills, which focuses on expressive communication and receptive communication. We look at social and emotional development, and then also adaptive and self-help skills. And we can also address feeding and sensory issues too.
That's so helpful because I know that those are so many of those areas that you just mentioned are areas where infants and toddlers with Down syndrome will often need that extra help. And so one of the things that I've come to learn in my time here in the state of Pennsylvania is we have really great early intervention services. Of course, Allegheny County where you work, but even the surrounding counties really provide services that we don't always hear are as available in perhaps even some of our neighboring states. And so I guess as far as you're aware, in the state of Pennsylvania, are there limits? And I'll explain what I mean by that. Limits to the early intervention services. For example, some states might say to the family, your child qualifies for early intervention developmental services, but you get 20 in the year, and now you have to choose how many of those are going to be PT, how many are going to be OT, how many are going to be speech, or something like that. And so the family has this really challenging decisions to make, on their own, perhaps with some medical guidance, but really almost on their own. Is it like that here in Pennsylvania?
It is not. I can speak for Allegheny County specifically. It is unlimited as far as services that can be offered and can be given to families, but it really is all based on the needs of the child. So services are recommended. If it is recommended that a child gets physical therapy once a week, then we can offer that until that child no longer needs physical therapy once a week. We can offer as many services as that child needs, but it really is then based on the needs of the child. If the child is making great progress, then it may not be necessary to give them or offer them once a week therapy. So we do have children who may receive physical therapy and occupational therapy one time a week, maybe speech every other week, maybe developmental once a month. It really just depends on the child's needs, but we do not have limits. It's all based on the needs of the child and how they're doing developmentally. And also, I should add too, it can be based on the family schedule. We have some children that it may be recommended that they get 3 or 4 services a week, but mom or dad may say, whoa, that's too much for us. We have other children at home that we have to tend to their needs too. So how about we just do 1 or 2 services a week and then 1 or 2 services every other week? So again, we look at the big picture. We look at the child's needs, and then we also look at what's going on with the family too.
So where, I guess you may have mentioned this already, but may not. Where do these services occur? Are they happening in a building where you are? Is it happening in the homes? Where are these services happening?
So in the state of Pennsylvania, we work with children in their most natural environment. Most of our children are receiving services in their homes because that is in the birth to 3 age group. That's mostly their most natural environment, in their homes. In their child care centers, we can go into the child care centers. We can go to grandma's house. We can go to the babysitter's home. We can meet the family at the park. We've met families at the playground. We've met them at the museums, whatever is most natural for that child. If a child needs to work on gross motor skills and they need to work on climbing up and down the stairs, well, maybe a family lives in a ranch home or an apartment that doesn't have stairs. So we need to then think, okay, where can we go that we can work on stairs? So again, can it be someplace out in the community? Can it be at grandma's house? We've had families meet at the local mall and go to the play area at the mall, whatever is most convenient for that child and that family. And again, what's natural for that child. So all of our services can be offered in the home. And again, anywhere where that child typically spends their days.
That's such a wonderful ability to be flexible in terms of where the services are going to take place. Sometimes maybe someone who's not familiar with early intervention services may ask, well, what's the cost? Who pays for this?
There is actually no cost for early intervention services here in the state of Pennsylvania. We get funding through the federal government. We get funding through the state. We get funding here in Allegheny County through Allegheny County. We also can bill medical assistance. So any family who has medical assistance, we are able to bill medical assistance with the family's permission. In addition to that, we also have another funding stream that's called our ITF waiver, Infant Toddler Family Waiver, that given the child's needs, we may be able to enroll them in this waiver program and bill the waiver program for some services also. So we have various pots of money that we are able to bill for services. And because it is at no cost to families, that's why we have eligibility requirements. We can't just enroll every infant and toddler in early intervention. We do have them meet certain eligibility criteria. but once they are eligible for our program, it is at no cost to our families.
So how does that process begin? How do you find out if you think your child qualifies, or does everybody qualify if they have Down syndrome? How do you know if your child qualifies for early intervention?
So I guess I can start from the very beginning as far as the referral process goes.
Sure.
I will put it out there to say anybody can make a referral for a child for early intervention. So we get referrals from birth hospitals, from children right at birth who may have a diagnosis or may have been in the neonatal intensive care unit. Anybody can refer a child from the birth hospital. We get referrals from pediatrician offices. We get referrals from various social service agencies, and then we get referrals from the parents themselves. So like I said, anybody can make a referral, but we are a voluntary program. So it is up to mom or dad whether or not they choose to participate in the program. And once they enroll in our program, in order to determine eligibility, we do what we call a multidisciplinary evaluation on that child. So in order for a child to be eligible in the state of Pennsylvania, they have to meet one of three criteria in order to be eligible. And the first one would be, once we do that initial evaluation, we look to see if there is a 25% delay in any area of development or 1.5 standard deviation below the mean. So we use different developmental tools, and whether they look at standard deviation or whether they look at percent delay, we take the child based on their chronological age and determine at that point, based on that assessment tool, if they have a developmental delay. The other criteria would be if a child has a diagnosis or a condition that has a high probability of leading to a developmental delay. So every state or every county in the state of Pennsylvania has a diagnosis listing that I know in Allegheny County, we work very closely with the developmental pediatrician to give us information on certain medical diagnoses, certain behavioral diagnoses that could be a diagnosis that could lead to future developmental delays. Now, I will say that in the state of Pennsylvania, Down syndrome does fall under that medical diagnosis. So any child with a diagnosis of Down syndrome automatically qualifies for early intervention services birth to 3 in the state of Pennsylvania. We still want to do a developmental assessment because we want to see where that child is developing at that point in time. So we'll look at them when they first come into our program. And then every year we reassess all of the children just to make sure that they still have developmental needs. And we'll look at the strengths that they have. We'll look at the progress that they've made over the last year. But every year we do reevaluate the children. And then our last area of eligibility is what we call informed clinical opinion. So this would be for our children who may look really good on paper. They look really good on the testing tools. They're meeting their milestones. They're doing what they should be doing. However, something is a little bit off with them. Maybe they have some gross motor issues that, again, they're meeting their milestones, but their balance may be off, or they may be a little bit low tone. They're still doing what they should be doing, but there's some other issues going on. Or for some of our children who have some behavioral needs that maybe, again, they're doing everything they should be doing developmentally speaking, but it's very difficult for the parents to get through the day because of the behavioral stuff that's going on. Or same thing if the child care center, if there's stuff going on there, that makes it very difficult for the other children and the teachers at the child care. So again, we can use this informed clinical opinion to make children eligible for early intervention. So those are our 3 main criteria. And if a child shows a delay, has a diagnosis that falls onto that list, or has informed clinical opinion that would justify them to receive services, then what we do is we call our individualized family service plan. So then every child that's enrolled with us has their own individualized family service plan. It's otherwise known as an IFSP. And what this does is it lists our goals. What do we want to work on through therapy? What do we want to see accomplished? And it can be something as simple as, I want my child to be able to walk independently so that I don't have to carry him throughout the day. So here's what's going to happen then. We're going to assign a therapist to work on that goal. And then we're going to come up with some smaller steps, how we're going to accomplish that goal. And then however often that child is receiving therapy, whether it's weekly, whether it's every other week, they're going to look at those little steps to see how much progress are we making. Every 3 months, there's contact with the whole team, with the service coordinator that's assigned to the family, with the therapist, with the family. And then, like I mentioned, every year, we will reevaluate the children to determine whether or not they still need therapy at that point in time. And if so, do we want to continue with what we're doing? Do we want to decrease? Do we want to add services? And we can do that throughout the year too. Some of our children may start off with certain services, and then after a few months, the therapist may say, I think we need to add an additional service, or he's doing really well with me. I think we can decrease me, but then maybe add an additional support. So again, it's really all based on what's going on with that child and how they're progressing and what's going on in the home also.
It's awesome. I mean, it's individualized to the child, individualized to the family, the location, the needs that they have. We have so many families that we've heard from over the years that I've been working in the Down Syndrome Center that actually moved to our state because of how wonderful the services are as they're provided here. So really great. Thank you so much for filling us in on these details. I guess one thing that families will often ask, especially at the first visit that we have with them, is, so when we get early intervention services, does that mean that our child will crawl sooner, walk sooner, talk sooner? And if not, then what is the role, you think, overall of early intervention services?
I would like to go back to the actual services first, because I don't think I mentioned the services that we can offer to families. So again, here in the state of Pennsylvania, we can offer physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech and language therapy. We have special instruction, which is developmental therapy that can work on all areas of development. We have nutrition supports, we have hearing and vision supports, and then we have social work services available to families. So again, we offer a wide variety of different types of services. And as I keep mentioning, it's all based on that child's needs, what's most appropriate for that child, and how that child is going to progress with a certain therapist. We can change, we can add, we can increase, we can decrease. So getting back to your last question about the importance of early intervention, the purpose of it, I think that it's important for families to know that, and I'm sure that you talk about this with families too, children progress so differently. And this is even for our children who don't have a diagnosis. Children meet their milestones at all different times. And we do know, though, that the first 3 years are so critical for any child, whether they have a diagnosis or whether they don't have a diagnosis. And those first 3 years, these children are developing their basic language, their basic skills in all areas of development. And it's kind of their foundation for their future. So some children that we see may meet their developmental milestones ahead of time. Some may be a few months behind. And some children that we see, there may be developmental milestones that they never meet. And again, it's just the uniqueness of that child and what's going on with that child. But I think the importance of early intervention is for a lot of times for the parents to learn about what's going on with their child, for the parents to learn about what they can do to help their child. our therapists use what's called a coaching model. So when the therapists come into the home, they're really coaching the parents. They're teaching the parents. They're showing them different techniques, different things that they can do throughout their child's day. We all know that 1 hour of speech therapy a week is not going to get a child to talk, or 1 hour of physical therapy a week is not going to get a child to walk. It's what goes on in all those other hours throughout the week. So it's really, our therapy should be incorporated into the daily routines of that child, of that family. So throughout the day, throughout the week, we want to teach the parents, hey, during bath time, let's work on this. When it's dinner time, the family can participate in this. When you're in the car, let's practice singing these songs. Let's practice these word games. So throughout those daily activities, what can we work on with our child? What can we do? And we can bring the siblings in. Or if the child goes to daycare, we can, again, provide those techniques to the daycare teachers and explain to them, here's what we want to accomplish. Let's work as a team to get this child where we want him or her to be. And I think also for the parents that we work with, early intervention can be a huge support for them also, because not only are they learning things and being able to teach their child, they're making connections. So they have these connections with the therapists that they can ask questions to, that they can get information from. But your service coordinator can also help connect you with other families. So there's a great group in the state of Pennsylvania. It's called Parent to Parent. We can connect parents with other parents who might be experiencing something that you're experiencing. I mean, there's times when people feel like you're in it all by yourself and there's nobody out there that's going through what you're going through. So maybe just meeting somebody, even if they live across the state, it's still somebody you can connect with via the phone or via Zoom. People in your county, we have support groups here in Allegheny County that you can meet other parents. You can engage in play groups. And again, I feel like early intervention can be a great support for parents too. It can connect them to other parents. It can connect them to other groups. There are so many things out there for parents to meet other parents, and so many ways for them to do that, whether it's through the library, whether it's through the community center, whether it's through support groups. So that's a big piece of early intervention also, is getting the parents connected with other parents so that they feel more empowered, and that as time goes on, they can advocate for their child and learn how to do that and be a voice for their child and themselves too.
Yeah, so the scope is so broad. And so I like the way that you painted that picture. It's not about getting their milestones faster. It's not about making sure they walk by one and those types of things, but it's more about coaching and supporting that family along that process. One thing we've definitely seen in our Down syndrome center over the years is that, kids with Down syndrome, because many of them have lower tone and more flexibility in their joints, will often come up with all kinds of strange ways to get to sitting faster or get to walking sooner. But in the long run, it's much better to have a therapist working with them who can say, hang on, let's work on these intermediate skills so that we're not correcting gait issues as they get older. That's just a little, gross motor example that we see, but we see it in fine motor and speech and these kind of shortcuts that a lot of kids will try to take, that we can help to help them make sure they achieve those goals in an appropriate kind of stepwise fashion. So I appreciate that. Now you've mentioned.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say, I think we as adults learn to compensate also for maybe some gross motor issues that we may be having the older we get. And some of us end up in physical therapy for one reason or another. And again, it's tough. It's hard. It's hard to learn how to do things the right way when you've been compensating for so long.
Yeah.
There again, it leads me back to even we as adults, if we are in receiving physical therapy, we have to practice that too. You have to You have to do those exercises. You can't just rely on your physical therapist one day a week to fix you.
For sure, for sure, for sure. So now you've mentioned it. I've called it also during this podcast a birth to three, but we've also talked about how it goes till five. So it sounds
Mhm.
like there's some different age times where things will change for somebody who's in the early intervention program. So what are some of those ages? What happens at those transition periods?
So in the state of Pennsylvania, when a child turns 3, they then transition into the intermediate unit preschool programs. So here in Allegheny County, we work with the intermediate unit 2 and the intermediate unit 3. The intermediate unit 2 is through Pittsburgh Public Schools. So they have a preschool program set up where they are able to provide early intervention services to families that transition from our program into their program. And then also the intermediate unit 3, which is known as the Allegheny Intermediate Unit. And their 3 to 5-year-old program is known as the DART program. They also have services and supports designed to help children who have developmental needs. So what happens is 6 months before a child turns 3, we start getting the parents ready for that transition. We actually, from the very first day we meet that family, even if that child is 2 weeks old, we let them know at age 3, this program ends, and you then have to transition into the new program. We don't just drop the families at age 3. We really try to make it a smooth transition into those 3 to 5-year-old programs. So those programs are more geared towards education. So it's centered around preschool. We want to get these children into that preschool setting so that they can move right on to kindergarten at age 5 and transition smoothly into kindergarten. Now, again, in the 3 to 5-year-old programs, therapists will change. Services might look a little bit different because, again, it's centered around education. The goal would be to be able to get children with other children in some type of a community classroom setting. That's what we would love to see happen. They can receive services there. So for some of the children who are going to a preschool or already in a childcare setting, there are early Head Start classrooms throughout the county that children can attend, and then specialized preschool programs also. So depending again on what the child's needs are, the DART program and the Pittsburgh Public School preschool program will work with that family. They will make sure that they are in the most suitable environment for that child, and then they can provide services in that setting. Some children, again, depending on their needs, may continue with in-home services, but it wouldn't be through the Alliance for Infants and Toddlers. It would be through one of the Allegheny or one of the intermediate units. So things do change at age 3, but services are still available at age 3.
That's wonderful. So really, for the first 5 years of their life, the kids will be able to get these services. Again, we've been talking about free of out-of-pocket charge for them, which is such a wonderful resource. I feel like we've covered so many topics today. I think this is one of the most all-encompassing podcasts we could ever have on early intervention. I really appreciate this time you've spent with us, Erica. Is there anything, before I close the podcast, anything that you would want to add or any message you would want to make sure the families get before we close our podcast?
I would just love to reassure parents that early intervention can be a really great thing for yourself and for your child. Again, it provides you with suggestions and ideas and helps you. It may help you better understand what's going on with your child. You know that you're not alone out there. You know that there are resources and supports for you, and that your therapists are there to help you through the process. Again, you will be assigned a service coordinator that they will help you through the process. They'll help you complete all the paperwork that's involved. And it's just, I feel that it's a very beneficial program to get involved early, to get started early. we come to you. You don't have to worry about putting the children in the car or on a bus and getting them to a program. We can come to you, and it's no cost to you. So it can
Yes, and the one thing that the data has been so clear on, as I close us up here, the data is clear in people with Down syndrome, particularly, of course, the younger age children. Early intervention services have been probably the most impactful thing in research that has shown to help with overall outcomes for people with Down syndrome. So I just think that it's great that we have such great services here in Pennsylvania, particularly here in Western PA and Allegheny County. So we love partnering with you guys in the work that you're doing as well. And I'm sure you get tons of referrals from us.
We do.
Also.
We love it. Yes.
So for our families, I hope you enjoyed this podcast as much as I did. Erica, thank you so much again. And
thank you.
Of course. And our families, if you have any topics that you would like us to cover, anything that you think that we would benefit from as a group learning more about, please do keep sending those emails to downsyndromecenter@chp.edu. For those of you who are interested in partnering with what we do, keeping this podcast going, keeping the work that we do at the center going, feel free to go to givetochildrens.org/Down syndrome and become a partner in what we're doing here in this area. But until next time, bye-bye.